All right, all right, all right. 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 Good even fall to one and all. Lieutenant Commander's log, stardate 110011.9. This is warp speed, and I hope you are doing well of health and sane of mind. And if you aren't, well, I do wish you the best, and I hope you can recover that sanity, that health that I do wish that I myself enjoyed at this current moment. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me, and I believe perhaps dream in another one of these very rare but special occasions where Warp Speed, your interlocutor, yep, this man right here, he joins you in this broadcast to discuss all things organized pugilism, organized violence, boxing by another name, the bloody ballet of fisticuffs and of loosened teeth. And today we will be discussing, goodness, I I barely got the show started, Arimeri. Come on, give me a give me a rest. Let me just cook for a minute before you start making me laugh. You're breaking the rhythm of the show, buddy. Arimeri, he's a legend here. In fact, I've been considering making Arimeri uh, a wrench. I still haven't figured out how to do the wrench, and I know that he would be a valuable asset to the show, not only because he can partake and keep the chat, the commentary section going, but it's absolutely hilarious. And not only that, whenever I make mistakes, he corrects me or at least substantiates what it is that I'm saying by research. So, Arimedi, I believe you are going to be a wrench. Let me just figure out one of these days how to do that. But thank you very much and greetings from outer space. I know you're greeting us from China, and I hope you are doing well. Let me know how the Mongolian beef is over there. I know that sometimes over here, if you're lucky, you can find a nice place that will make some good Mongolian spicy beef. But I hope you are doing well. And please walk that whole Great Wall of China thing for me. It should take you a matter of hours, right? All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be discussing the IBF's rulings, which should come anytime now, against Oleksandr Usyk, where they're going to be mandating him to open up a dialogue of conversation and business with Filip Hrgovic. And should they not make that next fight happen, then, oh, lo and behold, guess who is no longer an undisputed fighter? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the IBF is allowing Oleksandr Usyk, recently minted undisputed heavyweight fighter and the first heavyweight fighter in the four division, in the four sanctioning body heavyweight division, undisputed champion in nearly 30 years. One of the funnest, most exciting fights that I've seen at heavyweight division in recent years. A hellacious fight where both Oleksandr Usyk and his rival Luke Tyson Fury went balls to the wall, gave it their best, and one guy came out triumphant at the end. Yes, Ukraine's Oleksandr Usyk. But his reign as undisputed, and in fact, two times undisputed because he's accomplished this feat and the cruiserweight division prior to this, he will no longer be holding that acclaim, that respect, because they will likely strip him because guess what? Oleksandr Usyk has an obligatory immediate rematch clause against Tyson Fury. And most people reckon that Luke Tyson Fury will likely take that fight next. Whoa, but if you thought that was bad enough, imagine what the IBF is going to do to Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, aka El Canelo, if he should not decide to face Cuba's William Scull next. Now you may be asking yourself, who is William Scull? And why does he merit so much respect as to want to strip the cash cow in boxing, an undisputed fighter at the super middleweight, Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan? Why would they do that to that fella? And why did they strip him of a belt prior to this? Is this personal, you may be asking? I don't know. These are questions that I present to you. I do not profess to know any answers to any of these questions, but I do encourage you to proffer what your opinions are. What do you think is going on with the IBF? Is the IBF power crazy? Are they doing the right thing? You let me know. Let's see what Arimedi has stated. Arimedi, my mom has curly hair, so they always tell me, ¿Es China tu madre? Oh God. Arimedi, yeah, that's what they're saying to you. Yes, it's China. Oh God. I'm not gonna say that. But yeah, I guess they're asking if it's your mother of Chinese origin. IBF means I better fight. Yeah, actually, absolutely, you're right. The IBF means I better fight. And in fact, that's exactly what they're doing. They're forcing Oleksandr Usyk and Alvarez to decide whether they want to fight the next men in line for their sanctioning body. Now, you guys know where I stand on this. I will allow you an opportunity to guess where I stand on this. Do you think I find this to be unfair? Or do I think I find the IBF doing the right thing? Recall that undisputed is one of the hardest things to achieve in the sport of boxing. Or better yet, let me rephrase that. Undisputed should be the hardest thing. Not that it is, but it should be the hardest thing to accomplish in the sport of boxing. Right? Because it should be so difficult for you to climb up the ranks, to go and get all 4 belts of all the sanctioning bodies that exist. The WBA, the first one if I'm not mistaken, the WBC, the WBO, and the IBF, climbing all of those ranks, fighting the top names and all of those ranks at the division that you're fighting in order for you to consolidate all 4 belts like Thanos would consolidate all Infinity Stones, right? Yes, WBC, WBO, WBA, IBF. You're absolutely right, Admeti. The problem is that the IBF is seen as the lesser belt of the 4. Yes, and absolutely, you are right, and I'll explain the reason for that. If I'm not mistaken, the reason that the IBF is considered the lesser belt of the 4 is because it's the most recent one. And it is one, if I'm not mistaken, it's the most recent one. Maybe it's the WBO, WBA, I mean. No, the WBO. And oh goodness, I forget this order. I forget. I think the WBA was the first one. The WBC was the second. The WBO was the third, and the IBF the most recent one. Right? I think the IBF was founded by a former New Jersey State Athletic Commission president who ended up establishing that sanctioning body. Then it was short-lived before the IBF was investigated by the FBI for corruption and fighters being able to climb up the ranks by lining the purses of the president. And then, of course, they reformed themselves, and now they are one of the strictest organizations of all of them. In fact, a lot of American fighters do not partake in the fights sanctioned by the IBF because they just don't lend themselves to the kind of tactics that would lead to advantageousness that the American fighter likes to uh, enjoy. Like, for example, the IBF has the 1 day rehydration clause. They have like a rehydration limit of 10 pounds for the championship fights, and I think they do same day weigh-ins, right? Or 1 day weigh-ins, and then you can rehydrate past 10 pounds from that fighting weight for the next day, right? Or something to that effect. But it's also because a lot of the IBF champions have been from abroad, from other countries. The IBF is renowned and respected, and the other countries, a lot of fighters from Ukraine and Russia, Eastern Europe, all of those people, they just have an open door at the IBF. And Americans just like to stay away from that as much as they could, right? Nonetheless, because of the fact that the FBI investigated them and actually deemed them a corrupt organization, that they then had to change their ways and reform themselves. The reforms is what led to them becoming one of the strictest organizations out there. Right. Dream, are you in the background, sir?
Hello. How are you?
Dream, I'm doing all right. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. I'm
Yeah.
fantastic.
So, you know what we're discussing. I hope that you've been privy to the conversations that I just commenced, and I'm sure that you've been following a lot of the recent boxing news. A lot of it is, of course, talking about the quote unquote injustice that is being per- perpetrated against the undisputed champions and Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, and of course Oleksandr Usyk at the hands of the IBF, who is threatening to strip those two undisputed champions of their undisputed status by taking away one of their belts. Right. So we know that undisputed is or should be one of the hardest things to attain in the sport, right? I mean, imagine it. Just imagine a dream. You're a fighter, right? That has to climb up the ranks where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of boxers the world over, right? And you have to win all of these fights in order to climb up the ranks. You have to take these gambits and just jump and say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to fight a guy that's ranked 50 numbers higher from me in order to jump into that man's spot. I am willing to, with less experience, fight these guys because I want to get to the top. And the harder, the more you get to the top, the harder the fights become. The more challenging the sanctioning bodies are, and the more demanding they are of your purses, right? You start getting some name recognition, you get paid, you get taxed by the IBF, WBA, WBO, WBC. And nonetheless, you continue on. You sacrifice day and night. You go over there, you make it to the top. You beat one guy, you beat another guy, and then you beat another guy, and then you beat the last guy standing, right? It should be one of the hardest things to to achieve in the sport. But of course, we also know that it could be also one of the easiest, right? Like for example, the lineal status has actually made it very easy for you to become the undisputed champion, because the lineal status, it just basically means the man that beat the man, or the man that beat the men. Wait, sorry, the man that beat the man that beat the men, right? That's but that basically just means that you beat one guy. Like for example, the guy who beat Bernard Hopkins, who used to be an undisputed three belt uh, holder for before the IBF was a thing, I believe. That think that was who was it? If you don't mind reminding me, who was that? Um, Dream, the guy who beat Bernard Hopkins, that he became Jermaine Taylor. Was it Jermaine Taylor?
The
Jermaine
dude that
Taylor.
the dude that beat Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah, when
Hmm.
Bernard held three belts.
In the super middleweight division.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Um, he shit. I was gonna say he lost to Kovalev, but I think I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, but that was later on in his career. Um, I'm trying to the undisputed boxing champions, boxers. Yeah, but okay. So there was this one guy, right? Who man, I better not disrespect him. Undisputed champions. Four title undisputed. Let me see. Roy Jones. There was Roy Jones, Darius Misilki, Virgil Hill, Lennox Lewis. I mean Lennox Lewis. Yep. Jermaine Taylor. There you go. Jermaine Taylor won all four middleweight titles from Bernard Hopkins in 2005, but was stripped of the IBF title for agreeing to a rematch rather than fighting Sam Soliman. Okay, so Jermaine Taylor won all four middleweight titles from B Hop. So I guess B Hop was the very first guy to have four belt titles. And then Jermaine Taylor got all four belts by beating him once. You see? And then the IBF stripped Jermaine Taylor because he agreed to rematch Bernard Hopkins instead of fighting his mandatory Sam Soliman. So now we have precedents, right? The one thing that the IBF will do is they will strip any of its undisputed champions, irrespective of how hard it is to get the belts, solely because you're not going to defend it next. See, when people talk about how it's unfair that Oleksandr Usyk is being stripped of his undisputed status by the IBF for not fighting Filip Hrgovic and fighting Tyson Fury again, you have to understand that it's not personal. The IBF has done it before. And the IBF has already threatened Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan of doing the same thing if he doesn't fight this unknown, unheralded Cuban fighter by the name of William Scull, Scull. I've never heard of him. I've never seen him fight. Let me ask you, Dream, where do you stand in this, in the IBF's position that these guys, like Ari Meri says, the IBF stands for I what is it? I fight next, or I must fight. I forget how he put it, right? But I better fight. IBF means I better fight. Where do you stand on the way that the IBF is moving in accordance to these two undisputed champions?
I mean, this is how they've been moving. Damn, man, I hear my own echo. Hold on, hold up.
Okay.
All right, yeah, no, okay, there we go. Um, yeah, no, the IBF been moving like this. They stripped Terrence Crawford. Uh, they stripped his belt, his IBF belt, and he kept the rest. You know, and then they gave it to Boot Ennis. So they obviously they move differently. Um, I also think they I think they're the ones that actually do all the weight hydration clauses and all that. If I'm wrong,
Yeah.
it might be them. It might be them or the WBA, but
No, it
I
is the
think that
IBF.
yeah, IBF does all that, so they move differently compared to the other sanctioning bodies. Um, So I mean, it's not a surprise. I think they're just structured differently, as far as like what keeps them as a sustainable. Because they're organizations, but they got to make their money too. And I feel like IBF, they require you to fight a little bit more, in order to keep the belt, and they're just keeping the same energy that they've been keeping for the past couple decades, since they've been around. So there's a reason why it's hard to like become undisputed, and it's because you had to all the stars had to align, and you had to actually obey by their rules. Anyone that fights in the IBF has to go through the white hydration clauses, and they have to fight pretty consistently. And I think, yeah, this is a belt that Errol Spence had when he first won, and when he beat Kell Brooks. So he was fighting pretty damn consistently.
Mm,
Um, he wasn't as he wasn't like he is right now. He wasn't like inactive. He was actually fighting consistently. So this is how they've been moving. I think WBC needs to learn a little bit more of what how IBF moves. They require their guys to fight. They don't just have their guys go through BS and not and still able to keep a belt. Like, so I don't know. It's the way it's been. I've barely got educated on all this the past
mm.
12 months. So like there's a reason why we just barely got um you know the first like undisputed champ in the 2000s in the heavyweight division,
Yeah.
since Lennox. So like all that has to align, and if you don't follow their business plans as far as how they see the title holder and how he should move, then it looks like you're never going to be undisputed, because yeah, you got to be active, man. And
Hmm. Hmm.
look how inactive Terrence Crawford has been. I mean, they see how he moves, and they're like, "Nah, you don't fit our standards in a sense. Like you're the champ, you're the pound for pound, but you know, our guy, or whoever holds these belts, fights consistently, goes through a weight
Mm.
hydration clause. Um, that's just how they move. I don't know how the other sanctioning bodies move to the T, but just because of how much the IBF stands out compared to the other ones.
Oh yeah.
Unless I don't know shit.
No, no,
I
no, you're
just
right.
I
I
know.
think you nailed it on the head. You said
And,
something that
and,
was key. You said the word standards. I think that's where the IBF is dead set on following a standard, right? I think that's the perfect way to put it. Like for example, when you consider the IBF and you compare them to the WBC, you mentioned something, Charlo, right? Charlo did not dispute nor defend his WBC belt at middleweight for almost 3 years. Right?
yeah, did
Even
you and
mhm.
did you even see they added the WBA added weight hydration clauses? I think they just added it for the Tank. They either added it for the Tank and Frank Martin fight, or they did it in general. Like, I'm not too sure which one it is.
Yeah, there was some controversy there about how Frank Martin was told that he was going to have some kind of rehydration clause, and Gervonta Tank Davis says that's news to me. I haven't told you anything about it. And then he goes, no,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with you. I think Errol Spence was the one who interjected. He goes, no, Tank, it has nothing to do with you. It's a new clause that the WBA is starting off with that I hear about. And Gervonta Tank Davis is like, womp womp. Right, like, oh, so you can, so that's the thing though, right? We're not too sure who it benefits. Like for example, we know that when Gervonta Tank Davis likes to catch weight or limit the rehydration of the fighters, it's usually meant as an advantage that would benefit Gervonta Tank Davis, because he knows that he's going to be fighting fighters that are usually already being depleted or dehydrated to make some weights. And of course, if he even furthers that by limiting how much they can rehydrate to before he decides that he should walk away from a fight, then of course he's doing it to his advantage. The WBA seems to have legitimized rehydration clauses out of the way that men such as Gervonta Tank Davis are moving, right? So you can't really blame Gervonta for this one right here, if the WBA is willingly changing the clauses for fights, but it is going to benefit certain fighters like that, right? And it's going to make fighters that are sucking down to these very impossible weights just in order to have some physical advantages over the foes. It's going to be much harder for those guys to continue fighting at those weight classes because they're only going to be able to hydrate a tad, where before they might be able to rehydrate two or maybe even three times what they're going to be limited to. So that's very interesting. I heard about that too, Dream. But I think you said it right. The IBF is trying to enforce their standards. That's why Bud, Terrence Bud Crawford, if I'm not mistaken, got stripped of that one. The IBF, he lingered with those belts for a long time. The first thing is he decided to go up in weight. The IBF said, you know what? I'm not going to wait on you. I'm not going to hold on to your belts like the other organizations are doing so. Every person that's been involved in the sport of boxing should know that it's going to be hard for you to come back down to 147 once you decide to move up to 154. It doesn't work that way. Fighters do not go up in weight and then come back down. That's just not the way they do it. The only people that I can think of that have done that in recent years has been fighters such as Nonito Donaire, dedicated, hardworking individuals that actually suck down to those weights. How? By taking years before they get there. If you look at Nonito Donaire's career in the past few years, he hasn't fought that prolifically, but the fights that he has taken on have been at weight divisions that he hadn't made in years. But how did he get there? Well, he cut weight for literally years before he was able to make it, right? Before he was able to take on that fight with Naoya anyway. So I think you're right, Dream. The IBF has some standards that they're enforcing. They are not gonna let these fighters manipulate them. They're not gonna let these fighters hold on to these belts, making them the equivalence of somebody like Gary Russell Jr. Gary Russell Jr. was the longest reigning light, I don't know, light heavyweight champion for who knows how many years. I think he went down to 130. How did he do that, Dream? He held on to the same belt for like 6, 7 years because he only fought once a year. They're not going to suck down to that anymore.
Yeah, no, they're not, man. Yeah. So fuck. What were you, how did we get to this subject? The
Well,
hydration clause.
we're talking about the standards, right? We're talking about
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
why is it that the IBF is moving like this? Well, we know, like Arimedi just mentioned right here. Arimedi says the IBF backwards is FBI. It's maybe the government's belt. Well, in fact, Arimedi, like I mentioned to you, Bob Arum used to work for the FBI, investigating organizations such as the IBF, and I think it was in the 70s, maybe early 80s, when they were investigating uh, why the boxing organizations weren't allowing fighters such as Marvelous Marvin Hagler and the Murderers Row from taking on fights, right? And then they started to come down on these organizations because of corruption and because they weren't actually enforcing their ranks. And then I believe Bob Arum, Mr. Bob Arum, being the I think it was the general district attorney for the FBA, or I don't know, FBI, I don't know what you call those guys. He found the business model of boxing, not only one that was profitable, but one that he could actually exploit and improve upon. That is why Mr. Bob Arum got involved in the sport of boxing. That is why he's made some of the greatest business moves in the sport, and that's how he was able to bring some of the greatest fighters to the forefront of the sport, because he understood the potential of boxing and how to manage it properly. Now, can we say that Mr. Bob Arum has, of course, learned a bit from the corruption of it? Yes, but more so in a way to conceal it or maybe avoid it so that he himself is not investigated. But I don't think many people would really complain about the way that Mr. Bob Arum has maneuvered and respected the opportunities of the fighters that fight for his belts. But I think I think no one could have said it better than you, Dream. The IBF has standards, and because of those standards, they've stripped all the undisputed fighters. Terrence Bud Crawford, Jermaine Taylor. They will soon strip Oleksandr Usyk in about 2 weeks, and they will soon strip Canelo. Now, let me ask you your opinion, and you too, Arimeri, whoever's out there who wants to chime in. Is it fair that Oleksandr Usyk is going to be stripped of his belt, which would mean that his rematch fight with Tyson Fury is no longer as lucrative, is no longer as enticing to the sports world? It's for lesser importance, obviously. And what will that do for the fight, Dream? Do you think that fight will go on? Do you think the IBF taking away that belt will deter the boxing fans from watching the next fight, paying for the pay per view, which apparently was streamed illegally in the millions? And will it maybe negate Tyson Fury the opportunity to he himself become an undisputed fighter if he would beat Alexander Usyk on a rematch? What do you think about that?
Um, I think you're overreacting,
Really?
because yeah, because they always do this. Yeah, they always stripped the undisputed champ. Um, it doesn't lose any significance, because this is still number one and number two right here fighting. You know, and yeah, I think the rematch will happen. Um, I think I think the fight's gonna happen. It's gonna actually garner more interest. You know, I'm actually gonna buy the rematch if it happens. You know, because it bought me the first time. I was actually kind of streaming it, and I mean, I was like, shit, I'm gonna order it the next time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it bought me, and just because everyone thought it was gonna be like a, not everyone, but some people thought it was gonna be like a really boring fight, and it really wasn't. It was a really entertaining fight. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. It doesn't lose any significance as far as the belts and all that. Um, the fact that it happened 25 years later is good enough. Um, it doesn't really matter how many times yeah, it doesn't really matter how many times you defend the undisputed belts,
Mhm.
only because not too many people go for that accolade. They don't say, they just try to capture it one time, and then and fight whoever they need. The people wanted him to fight, wanted them, the champ, to fight, and move up in
Mhm.
weight, and become undisputed in that. One time is enough, to become undisputed. Uh, because it happened. You can call yourself the undisputed champ if you haven't lost in that division, just because, like you're.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't lose too much significance. It happens a lot right after a champ, um, right after a champ undisputes
Mhm.
a division. No, and the thing is, with every situation is different.
Mhm.
Usyk's situation, there's really not too much room for him to wiggle around with great for to find greatness. There's not too many opponents for him to build the the resume. He's already kind of done the work, most of the hard work at least, and you got dudes like Crawford who've got some room to go before they actually get too big for him. The
Mhm.
dude that really has a lot more wiggle room and to become undisputed more times is Inoue. He's got a lot more wiggle room. Um,
Mhm.
so he might find more opportunities to become undisputed, and it's more like them giving Inoue the opportunity to become undisputed in the next weight class. Because it's
Mhm.
going to be extremely tough for him to collect the belts. They're more spread out in the heavier division, or in the 126 division, rather than heavyweight division, I mean, I think you don't really have too many belts to collect. You know, you just look
Mhm.
at the opponents that you can be fighting. I mean, um, I guess you can go undisputed again for
Yes.
just to defend them again. But
Okay.
I mean, if you're trying to build a card,
Hmm.
like why not have a vacant title shot in the on the undercard, and then have the winner of that face Usyk, or face the winner of Usyk and Fury, because Fury can beat him again. There you go. You have a trilogy. You
Okay.
know. So
So so you said one thing, right? You said that take stripping Usyk of one of the belts, thereby by default no longer making it an undisputed fight, but by de facto it would be, because we know better. We know that nobody's beaten Oleksandr Usyk. We know that hypothetically he should still hold that belt, which means he is still the lineal champion. He is still the undisputed champion, even though some might say in recess, because maybe something could happen. He's just waiting to get his shot at getting the belt again, whatever you want to call it. But you say that it would not impact the fight because the boxing world knows better. Right? We all know that nobody's beaten Alexander Usyk. We all know that he would be fighting the same man who he faced off against to become the undisputed fighter in the first place. But then let me ask you something, and we hit you with this. When Teofimo Lopez decided to, well, I guess it's the other way around, right? When Vasil Hajtek Lomachenko decided that he was going to fight Teofimo Lopez and gave up one of the belts, I think the WBC, and then the WBC belt was emailed symbolically to Devin Haney, that fight between those men stopped becoming an undisputed fight. Why? Because the WBC stripped um, Lomachenko, so that when those two fighters, Lomachenko and Lopez, fought, there was only three belts in the line. Right now, we all know that nobody had beaten Lomachenko for the WBC belt. So we know that he should have walked in there with three belts or two
well,
belts or
they
whatever.
stripped it. They stripped it immediately after the fight, so they can actually have the ability to say, "Hey, this is for the undisputed belts." That's what it was called during the fight. It was the undisputed championship, right?
So you're saying that Teofimo Lopez became undisputed,
Yeah,
and then they stripped him?
right after. Yeah, that's
Wait, so they stripped Teofimo?
I'm telling you, that's what they do.
So wait. What? Are you
Yeah,
sure?
yeah, that's what Rick. That's what I got from Rick. Like that's what he kept telling me. I was like, unless I interpreted it wrong,
Whoa.
but
What do you, man? Don't make me, man. Look, I've done a lot of drugs, but I can't be that wrong. Let me see. Was Lopez versus Lomachenko for undisputed? Disputed. Uh, uh, no, see, it says why Lomachenko. Why Saturday's fight is not for the undisputed lightweight championship. Despite the
mm.
ESPN selling point, any hype you hear, it is not for the undisputed crown. Why?
Okay, okay, yeah. So it was called that, and they completely just lied to us. Nice.
Well, yeah, so ESPN sold it as if it was, because what they were trying to say is that in essence nobody had beaten Lomachenko. That Devin Haney was not supposed to have gotten the belt in the first place, because they should have allowed him to have taken on this undisputed fight. But they wanted to be very strict to mandating their thing, so they elevated, I guess, Devin Haney as the oh God, it was, yeah. So see, okay, so see, it does affect it, right? Because you're saying that you don't think the boxing world would really care one way or another if it was for all four belts or not, because they would know better. But I know a lot of people that do not give Teofimo Lopez the respect that they should as a as a undisputed fighter at 135 at lightweight, because he should have been, but they stripped away one of the belts for one of the fighters, and he never was. See, so it does affect those fights,
Well, in that
because
case, yeah,
in the books it'll never be that Teofimo Lopez was ever an undisputed fighter. It'll
yeah,
never
but
be registered as
in that
such.
in that case, yeah, but we're talking about like Usyk, whose biggest, like this is the biggest, like this is number one and number two going at it. Like we haven't found out who the best guy is in that 140 division, 130, in that and 135. Like we haven't gotten a clear cut answer as to who's number one and who's number two. We've got guys that beat their guys, and it's like a circle of life. We got guys who beat each other, and we really never found out. It's really just Tank. That's like that. Like Usyk is meeting his match, and ain't no one in the world beating these two guys right here. So it's a little different. We're getting these two, number one, number two, going at it, and that's the
Hmm.
consensus. Just yeah, it's cool to have belts, um, and it just kind of depends on who it is. It's like if you're holding a belt and you're facing Tank, that's when you're like, okay, that's when it does matter. And obviously having all this down in the record books, counts in the resume and all that. I'm really like shocked, not shocked, but yeah, I think that's why I was so lost with how they were able to lie to us legally as a consumer and say that this was for the undisputed belts. Like I didn't know that they can do that. So um yeah, that sucks. So
Yeah. So, but yeah. So what I'm saying, yeah. So see, you felt deceived. You felt lied to. I don't know if anybody felt like lied to. I mean, I know that they were studying it, and I know that they presented all four belts there. When Lopez and Lomachenko fought, right? But literally, it just boiled down to about a month at most that that the WBC stripped, and it wasn't really that they stripped. They just granted the belt to Devin Haney and elevated, quote unquote, elevated Lomachenko to this thing called a franchisee, which meant that this fighter represents this organization with so much trust that they uh, imparts on him, that he can move up and down any weight division while in their sanctioning body and fight any champion at any given moment. In other words, Lomachenko was such a respected and accomplished fighter that he could move up to 140, 147, 130, 126. If he can make those weights, he can fight any of the champions for the WBC. Right? It's the equivalence of like a WBA super champion, where they encourage you to go to play the pound for pound game and fight the champions at the next weight up or below, in order to test your skills against the other champions in their sanctioning bodies. Right? I get that, but yeah, a lot of people don't respect Lopez for having consolidated all four belts. Why? Because of a technicality. So in this case, I believe it would work similarly. Nobody would look at this fight, a rematch between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury, as a fight that they would look at as a legitimate defense of his heavyweight undisputed status, because he wouldn't walk in there with four belts. You see what I'm saying? I think it would impact the sales. I think it would impact the actual ticket sales also. And I don't think people would be interested in it after the kind of fight that we watched. Let me ask you something.
well, they can pull top rank again, like you said. Like they can do what they did with Tio. Then, if you're telling me that's what they did to us, and lie to us, then they can lie about the Usyk shit and kind of, man, and it won't affect the sales. Only the hardcores will overthink it, and to the casuals, it'll go over their head.
Uh, well, the casuals. Let me ask you something. It is it is reported that about 120 million people illegally streamed the fight. Are those people casuals?
I would say so. Yeah, yeah. This was
Okay,
a big fight. I seen those numbers already. Like those are the yeah. I watched TVV today too.
okay. So let me ask you, 120 million illegal streams. If those are the casuals, does that mean that the casuals follow the sport and know what's going on, but they're just cheap? Or do they just follow the hype? Because if they follow the hype, and that's why they illegally stream, they're not invested. That's why they won't spend money. They only watch it because people tell them it's a big, important event. It's meaningful in history, and that's the reason they watch it. Then I don't think they would even care, right? To follow the sport closely enough to understand that one of the belts was taken and how, right? I think if they're gonna watch it, they're gonna watch it because of the hype, and I think a lot of the hype comes from us, hardcores, that we talk a big one and we pass it on to the casuals, convincing them to follow the sport.
Well, you heard
I
about
think.
those numbers, right? You heard how much of them was from the United States, right?
Uh, no, no, I
No,
did not. No, no, no. I
it
just heard like the number, but I don't know
it was
how they came.
25% United States, and then 45% came from Europe. So there was a lot of hype that we didn't feel that Europe was going crazy for. This was a huge fight in Europe. They're the ones more, like about half of those numbers came from Europeans. So that changes a lot, right?
So, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that means that Europe and the Eastern world knew how important this fight is, but they weren't willing to dish out the money.
Yeah, because I mean, dude, we're in a global recession, bro.
Who
Pe-
said?
we're in a global recession right now. You don't know what's going on in the world?
No, no, no. I don't follow the news.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in the brink of war.
Yeah, yeah.
Ukraine.
That I do know. Yeah, I do know that
There's a lot of global economic shit going
turmoil.
down, bro. Like, yeah, dude. Like, um, I'm telling you, bro. Like, like it feels like we're in a recession right now in the United States, but in reality, the whole entire world is going through a recession. And
Yeah,
I and
yeah.
I
Okay.
and I and I think technology is able to
Help you
like
save money.
yeah, so pretty much, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
right.
it was so easy for me to stream it. I mean, I got home and it was like already the main event, and I was trying to stream it from my super box. And by the way, we canceled our cable because of how good this super box is. The super box gives us cable, all the
Mm,
channels. And then
mm.
there's even a tab on the super box that says pay-per-view events. Yeah. And I get
Wow.
but guess what? That only works for the smaller events.
Yeah.
So I said, "All right, no problem." I go on my phone and then I
You know,
go to
wait, 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 wait. Before you go on, you have to understand one thing. I'm anti-streaming, and another thing, though, another thing. There are certain names of certain websites. I know this that you cannot say because
okay,
then you are promoting those things. But
okay.
I
But
guess what you're
okay,
trying to
all right,
say,
yeah.
needless to say, there's
I got on my
places
phone.
that you can. Right?
Hold on. I got on
Uh,
my iPhone 5 I got on my iPhone 15.
hey, listen
And
to
then
this guy.
and
He's
then I
so
mirrored it.
hard pressed for money. This guy has an
Hold
iPhone
on.
15.
Can I
Um,
talk?
but okay, yeah, go for it.
So I got iPhone 15, because I work my ass off for it and I work Saturdays for it. And I streamed it and I mirrored it on my phone, on my TV. And then I was like, perfect. I didn't pay one penny. I don't think they had it for free though, like they did the Ryan Garcia fight. Then like I thought they were gonna do the same thing, but they didn't.
They did.
They did.
Yeah, I just watched it again.
Oh,
I've been
nice. Oh,
watching
so
it. I've
you
been
had the
watching it.
subscription?
Yeah, I'm subscribed to the
Okay.
zone. Yeah, I pay for my
Yeah. See,
stuff.
what do you mean?
Unfortunately.
No, hold on. I have my subscription. I told you that. I pay for my subscription, so I didn't pay
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
fight.
yeah.
Did you pay for the fight?
Yeah, but you know how I do it. I gather with my family. We all pitch in. So that's the only
Oh,
part that never makes sense to me. Like, whenever I think about people that stream, I always think about like, well, see, again, my philosophy in streaming, I don't chastise anybody.
you
When I
just,
say,
dude.
no, 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 I'm saying that you're talking about, this big old recession, but yet you have $1,700 phone.
I
I
did
know,
I
I know
pay?
you. Hey, wait, I know you work hard for it and you pay
Hold
for
on,
it, but you work
God,
hard and you can
you
pay
don't.
for the fight
Hold on.
too.
I didn't pay $1,700 for it, right? Not even $100 for it.
What do you mean? How did you get a?
Payment,
It's the same thing.
$8. I only paid $30 for it so far. I paid more. I've been putting in more money on the zone than my own phone right now.
You mean on a monthly basis?
So far.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But what I'm saying is, you're still gonna end up paying that much, right? It's like,
No, who knows? I might be up. I might be paying more on the zone by the time I'm done paying off this phone.
yeah, yeah. But
It's
what I'm
gonna
trying
take.
to say
It's
is
gonna
this.
take.
Look,
It's gonna take 40 months for me to pay off this phone.
yeah. But
I'm
what I'm
in
trying to
forty
say is the
months.
same
How
thing,
much
right?
money? How
Look,
much money you think I'm putting in on the zone in 40 months?
look, I'm not. Look, listen.
Come on,
What I'm trying to
come
say is
on.
this: if you go out, if you go to a car dealership and you get a car for $30,000, you're not gonna be like, I didn't pay $30,000 for it. I'm paying 150 a month. No,
Okay, but you're
I
saying
assure
you're
you, you're
saying,
paying thirty
but
thousand
you're
dollars. You're just paying it in payments.
but you don't think 40 months of the zone subscriptions isn't more?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
math.
Look, I'm not. Look. All I'm trying to
It's
say, right?
math.
I
It's
know it's
math.
math, but what?
We live in a time right now where it's more expensive to have the zone than to actually have a better phone.
Yeah, it's just that it's a slippery slope, right? It's a slippery slope because if you're always trying to look for shortcuts on how to look, and I have no problem. I'm not gonna chastise you for whether or not you can do whatever
You
you want with
still
your money.
do. You still
I'm
give
just
us a hard
saying
time
that
for not paying for shit.
as a person that's involved in the sport, right? Uh, that you know how hard this sport is, right? When I think about how I move, how I where I place my money. See, the thing is, with my money, I consider it support. See, I don't consider it a burden. I don't consider it a charity. I don't consider it I'm being ripped off. I think I'm supporting and investing into something that I find value in. Right. So that's the way that I perceive things. When I decide to pay for a pay-per-view, I'm basically saying I like these things to go on. I like these big events to go on. Now, when I don't pay for a pay per view, right? Because there has been maybe a few pay per view events in the past decade or so that I've not paid for. I don't pay for them because I don't find value in them. So the way that I protest, right, is to say, look, I'm not going to sponsor this event because I disagree with it. And the way that I'm gonna show you I disagree with it is I'm not gonna pay for it. But here's the other thing though. I also don't stream it. You see what I'm saying? Because the reason why Turkey Ali Sheikh and Saudi Arabia and all of these communications companies know that you streamed 120 million pay-per-view events illegally is because they know that you have interest, except that you're cheap. You see what I'm saying? They know that they're producing a good quality product that you want to watch. That's why you illegally streamed it. But now they have data that says you're not willing to pay for it. So what do you think they're going to do with that data? They might just say, next time, I'm going to sell it for $40 and so forth and so on. The smarter companies will do that. But the more stubborn, less considerate companies will continue to play the same game, continue to sell you a product that may not be worth it, a product that people continue to say, listen, we don't want to pay for it. We'll watch it because it's interesting, but you're asking for too much, or the undercard is too inferior, it's not chock full, these aren't big names. There's way to make your money speak for you, right? Now, you think Turkey Ali Sheik and Matchroom and the Zone in Queensbury, you think they think that nobody wanted to watch this fight on account of the money? No. They're saying you guys are cheats and cheaters and thieves. That's what they're thinking, right? Now they're just trying to figure out how they can make it work in order for these fights to happen. Here's the thing, Dream. It is reported that Tyson Fury is about to net $100 million for that fight. Usyk like 110, 20 million, right? And who knows how many other of the fighters? Kovalev maybe 1.5. Um, you know, Cordina half a mil, whatever, right? It takes a lot of money to get these fighters in the ring. If we don't sponsor some of those fights, we aren't gonna get these fights anymore. You see, that's all I'm trying to say. It's a slippery slope. I understand we have to save money, but you also have to think of it like, what do we do, right? What is the fine line right there? Because I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about that? I'm not trying to say anything bad about you. I'm just trying to say, it may not be working if you're illegally streaming. If you have no interest in these fights, just don't watch them because they know you, right? They're watching you. They're watching your every move.
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I want, bro. I'm
Of course, of course.
gonna do what
Now
I
let me
want
ask
when I want.
here's the homie Ricky brought up a very good point, and he told me, dude, do you think really? Do you think that 120 million people watched it illegally? If these guys don't even report their pay-per-view numbers, how are they able to report illegal streams?
Um, yeah, well, I was trying to. I was thinking about that, and so pretty much, like they can pay for some of the data, and they can actually see, um, pretty much, yeah, they can pretty much pay for the data, and then hire those same guys to actually block people from looking at their shit. So they're gonna pretty much like they can pretty much get bought out, but they like that's the only way I can think about it because that's all kind of private information kind of to the streamer, and shit I as a techie as like as a as smart as computer savvy as I think I am, I wouldn't know how they can actually detect the amount of people that are getting in on one VPN because that's what it is. Whenever we're betting, like on Bovada, we're using somebody else's VPN to bet. Pretty much, it's still illegal to bet in California on these boxing fights. So that's why they can actually see how many people are going into a website and but that's the thing, like they don't know how many people are watching it with us. It was just me watching it, and they're just kind of detecting how many devices we're getting and stuff like that. So um, that's the way I can think about it. Like I'm pretty sure they paid for the data, and then they're just gonna end up paying for those. They're just gonna pay those guys to like not have it on, or have some cybersecurity dudes that know their shit and shut it down. I think that's what Dana White did, and they're having not an issue, but it's like something that's been going on with crack streams and meth streams, like with the UFC. And Dana paid like a lot of money to block that shit out. So I'm pretty sure that was like a test run, and they're gonna block it out the next fight. Um, because yeah, Turkey got the money to do it, and he's gonna do it. I mean, that's the thing. He's gonna work with us though. He's gonna work with us, and he's gonna lower the price, and that's when I'm coming in. I'm buying low and selling high.
Hmm.
All you other guys bought high and selling low. Just kidding.
Hmm.
Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. No, that makes sense, right? Like for example, I know that there's illegal streaming sites. Who's to say that these companies, these technology companies that are compiling all this massive metadata, that they don't pay these companies to say, hey, illegal streaming VPN, give me all the information without asking any questions, who's doing it, well, how to track them, otherwise, just how many views did you get? for this illegally streamed broadcast, right? And then they just compile them all together, right? Um, and they sell that data. The illegal stream VPN sells it to the party that's interested. In this case, the Zone, Matchroom, Turkey Al Sheikh, whatnot, and that's how they're able to get those numbers, right? Um, it's the same thing, right? Like you have to understand one thing. There's my my daughter. She asked me about this thing called the dark web, and she said, "Dad, what's the dark web?" And I said, "To tell you the honest truth, I don't know because I've never been there, right? But it's not good. And I tell you one thing, it's ran by the FBI." She's like, "Huh?" It's like, yeah, it's like a website where only people that are
Criminals.
mostly criminals and ne'er do wells, just people trying to keep a secret, go there in order to keep things under wraps, right? But you'd be crazy if you think there's nobody tracking you there. You'd be crazy if you think that nobody follows you into the dark web, following your every steps, watching all the illegal things that you're interested in, watching all this crazy stuff go on, and them compiling a database of all your nefarious activities. You'd be crazy if they're not gonna wait for you to compile and do your crazy research on the dark web in order for them to create the psychological profile of you and then use that and blackmail you later on in the future. You're crazy if you think the dark web is just protected environ where you can just freely navigate the internets and say, hey, I got some crazy information that no one else will be able to privilege me on Google and all these places. It's crazy, right? And and that's the thing though. I know there's ways for people to gather data on your streaming activity, your Google searches, and otherwise. Even your own mobile provider can do it,
Yeah.
right? So it's like they know
So they
you're.
paid for it some way or another.
Oh yeah, absolutely, they paid for it, and that's the thing though. You have to understand if Turkey Al Sheikh, Riyadh Season, and all these companies are gathering this data. They're gathering the data in order to be able to, I hope, uh,
Work in
expand
the
the
future.
sport. Yes, exactly. Expand the sport, make a profit, present you guys opportunities. Because if it's just to curtail the opportunities, that's crazy. If they think that they're gonna take the information of 120 illegal streams and say the solution to that is charge more next time, no,
Yeah.
it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. I think
Yeah.
Arimeti is correct when he says $450 in 6 months off of 5 pay-per-view fights this year, an average of $74.99 a piece. Make a six with Tink coming up. That's right.
Yeah.
It's becoming very expensive to become a
Cheaper. It's
fan of the
cheaper.
sport of boxing.
It's cheaper to have an iPhone. I'm telling you. It's cheaper to have an iPhone, bro. Get an iPhone.
Yeah, no, no, no. I agree. There's other ways. I'm just saying, like, I don't know if this is the way to grow the sport. I'm not. I
Yeah.
understand these fighters want to get paid. I want my son to one day make it in the sport and get paid. But as a boxing fan, I tell everybody, right? The sport of boxing makes hypocrites of us all. Me, I like come forward aggressive fighters, but I don't want that for my son. I want my son to use his physical prowess, his physical abilities to move well and box these guys whenever he needs to. Take advantage and capitulate on their disadvantages and exploit your advantages, right? That sometimes means you're not a come forward fighter. Sometimes that means you're an outboxer. Sometimes that means you're just a stick and move kind of guy, right? Sometimes it does mean you're a come forward fighter if you realize that the other guy doesn't have enough power. But what I'm saying is this: I want ultimate violence in this sport when other fighters are doing it. But when it comes to my son, I wouldn't want him to be subjected to the same thing, right? And when it comes to being a fan of the sport, I want to watch every single fight possible, and I want to sponsor the sport financially, but I don't want to go broke doing so.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you shouldn't. You know, as a friend, I'm telling you, don't do it. You know,
Don't
because
do it.
yeah, just because it's it's bigger than this, man. Like, uh, they're really taking away, or like they're just taking advantage of the consumer. Like we genuinely like to watch fighting, you know, at the highest level. Like, and it's
Mhm.
okay if you don't like to watch um sea level fighters go at each other. It's okay if you want to just see the best of the best, you know. Like, you don't have to be a hardcore. It just sucks that if you have any type of interest, it's gonna cost you a little bit, you know. And yeah, no, I mean, I didn't live back in the day, only you did. So it's like, uh I heard a lot of stories um about boxing on Fox being like 12 free. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
it used to be free and available for everyone. Um, you can look at it that way. I've also thought about it as this way, right? Also thought about it as they paved the way for those guys that worked for Fox and did all that shit. Like, they paved the way so these guys can get paid uh, for to fight, you know, because they were fighting for change, you know. But I do feel like there's like a median for, you know, where everyone can be happy with what they're being paid and with what we are paying as consumers,
yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
there's a way, man, to keep everyone happy. And I just feel like there's greed just takes over, and it just sucks, man. That's It's a lot of money, man. I think yeah, I think so far this year, like I heard some dude say he paid for every fight pretty much this year, and it was like 350 something dollars for every single event so far this year. You know, and that's ridiculous because yeah, that's just along with the subscription, like that's just way too much, man. Like, it costs
yeah,
you it's really expensive to be a
yeah. That was
hardcore
me. That
fan.
was me. That was me. I must have spent about shy of $700 last year on boxing.
Yeah, see, that's something that you shouldn't have been paying for, bro. Like, I just
No, but
like I
I mean, I know what I get. But see, that's the thing, though.
But
This is a different
some of the fights
generation,
were
right?
worth it though.
Yeah,
Some of that those fights, I forget which one it was. You said
the PBC one.
you said it was worth every single penny. I
The
forget which.
PBC one, the PBC one was
Yes.
one of the most incredible pay per view, best $70 I spent in forever. No, but
Yeah.
see, that's the thing though, Dream. I'm from a different generation, right? I come from a generation where we didn't have as many pay per view events, but the
Mm.
ones that were a pay per view, we were presented huge, enticing fights, huge, incredible, meaningful, enticing fights, right? From an era when people cared about performing for the fans, uh, and they also cared about making the fights exciting, right? And the way that we would watch these pay-per-view events were in big, like, celebrations, these big gatherings where a lot of people would open up their backyards. They'd have this big old television screen. They would have beer and barbecue and everything. They were basically parties, so we were attending pay-per-view parties is what they were. Nowadays, because of the advent of mobility technology and otherwise, you could watch one of the most important fights in the world from the comfort of your couch with no one around you, and from the 9-inch screen that you hold in your back pocket, your mobile phone. Now, it's not the same. It's not as meaningful, right? It's not as meaningful to watch a fight with 50, 100 people before you, barbecuing, drinking it up, having a good time with family and friends, and there's another guy just watching it in his room in the dark on his iPhone. Just the fact that you can imagine that one is a spectacle, the other one is a practice in loneliness, right? How exciting can a fight be when you're the only one screaming in the dark, all by yourself? See, and so a person like myself, we gather together, we bring our family and friends, we make it an event. You're coming up in a generation that you didn't grow up experiencing fights like we did. You guys are growing up in a generation where you can watch these fights without having to pay money, without having to gather with people, that
I
you can
think
watch it
only a
riding a
hardcore would do that.
bus.
Only a hardcore would do that, and that's the price that they pay because no one else is interested in what they're interested in.
Who's the hardcore? The guy that's partying or the guy who's just living in the dark?
The guy that's living in the dark, that guy's a hardcore.
Oh yeah, that guy's yeah, or a loner. That's
You
so
can still go to the bar, but yeah.
yeah. Oh, and that's another thing, though. I think some of these prices that these companies charge for public venues like bars to present these fights, they charge them
Oh
like
yeah.
$1,500. So it's very hard for them to even make a buck. They're not enticing closed circuit television event type fights, like when Mike Tyson would fight Riddick Bowe, or Sugar Ray Leonard would fight Robert Manos de Piedra Duran. Before there was the people remodel, there was closed circuit events, and they're not doing that. And when they do, they're asking for so much money. The place that is interested in hosting an event, they don't want to pay for it, right? So yeah, no, the whole climate is changing. So going back to just wrapping up this conversation about this IBF, let me ask you about the fight between Usyk and Fury. When that fight ended, was the victory of Usyk so convincing that you don't care to watch a rematch, or was the excitement so grand that you would love to watch a rematch?
Uh, man. Um, that's a good question. I don't think I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. I think I want to see how um Tyson Fury no how yeah, I want to see how Tyson Fury approaches it. I don't think he plays games. Um, I think he beats him in the rematch. I think he does what he does from round 4 to round 9. Um, around my bad, whatever round. I think it was round 8 or round 9 is when he got hurt. Round 8, like he was kind of dominating him in a sense. In the science of boxing. And I think he doesn't play with his food this time. Um, he was getting caught like that the whole entire fight, like here and there, but the round 9 was just the one that it got to him, and he got concussed, and I think it's because he put his guard down and he started playing with his food, man. Literally started putting his hands down, and I think he cleans that up in the rematch, and there we have it. We have a trilogy in our hands, you know,
So, okay, there you go.
because two
There you
two
go.
because two because that's what it is. I mean, Fear Usyk managed to pretty much eliminate a trilogy with AJ.
Hmm.
Mathematically 2 out of 3.
Hmm.
Um, I want to see the rematch, and depending on how great that rematch is, because if Tyson Fury, the only way Tyson Fury wins is if he makes it a boring fight. That all that just out jabbing him and hugging him.
Really?
Yeah, like he has
So
to
wait,
make
wait,
it a
wait,
boring
wait,
fight.
wait. You don't think that the body work that Tyson Fury was performing,
Yeah,
and also the uppercuts, you don't think that was successful enough? You don't think one of those uppercuts, a well planted, more powerful, more convincing uppercut, could knock down and seriously hurt Oleksandr Usyk? You don't think one of those
no,
right hooks to the body, that once that they had Usyk complaining like, "Oh, you're hitting me low," when they weren't? You don't think one of those could drop him? I mean, we know that Daniel Dubois dropped him with what some
no.
people are saying was an illegal punch. You don't think Tyson Fury could go out there and just completely mollywop this guy?
I think that's what I kind of mean. Like he's just gonna make it win in his fashion. He's gonna dominate in his fashion. He's not gonna hurt him. I think he's just gonna out jab him and flick that jab out, make it a boring fight, and not to take too many risks. And yeah, man, I'm telling you, he was have fun in there. He shouldn't have been having fun in there. Um, those uppercuts was kind of new to me, but and those body shots was kind of surprising as well. But he really had to reach for him, and he
So
takes a
how did you
huge
think?
risk.
So what did you think Tyson Fury came with? You thought he just had a 1-2 hold, 1-2 hold?
Yes, that's
Well,
exactly what it is.
he knocked out Dylan White with an uppercut.
I mean,
Well,
this
it
is
was an
Usyk.
uppercut. It was an uppercut and a push. To tell you the truth,
Yeah,
he got him with a
because he hugs a lot, and he
yeah,
caught him on the inside. Like Usyk is not a hugger, you know,
yeah.
so it's different. He likes that mid range stuff.
Let me
So
ask. Let me ask Homie Ricky. Homie Ricky, do you think there's another game plan for Tyson Fury to beat Oleksandr Usyk in a possible rematch? Do you think if Tyson Fury was just more aggressive, just went harder to the body, started just walk down this guy, is that a possibility, or should he revert to being that awful, horrible 1-2 hold fighter like the one that he displayed himself to be against Vladimir Klitschko? You tell me, what do you think you can see Tyson Fury doing on a rematch? Because here's the thing: you brought up one of the reasons why I detest the immediate rematch clause. You said that,
detest.
yes, I absolutely hate the idea
Oh,
of a rematch clause.
hmm
So
damn, you're
you're
keeping the
saying,
same energy this time, huh?
no, always, always. This is why I'm so happy that the IBF is sticking to their guns and holding their standards, right? Because the IBF, listen, this is what the IBF has stated right after Oleksandr Usyk became undisputed. This is what the president of the International Boxing Federation, Daryl Peoples, said. He said, "A great night of boxing and a great fight worthy of the hype." I agree with him. But then he goes on and states the following: It's time. It's time that the IBF's mandatory title contender, Croatia's Filip Hrgovic, to fight for his shot to represent the IBF as a future champion, a fighter who's apparently waited his turn 3 times to fight for the IBF belt. Listen to that. In the milieu, the era that we live in, where the rematch for this fight would take place in October, we're talking about an era of boxing where you're lucky if a fighter takes on 3 fights in a year. In this fight between these two men, we're talking about 2 fights in a year. And the next fight would not be for the IBF. The IBF would then mean to tell Filip Hrgovic from Croatia, wait another year and a half before you get your shot. You see what I'm saying? There's this saying, right? The saying is something to the effect that I think it was something that William Shakespeare wrote. It says, "Uneasy lies the head that wears a crown." A lot of people say, I think they misquote it when they say, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown," but it's uneasy as the head that wears a crown, right? And that means that the burden to be the top fighter in the world is so heavy, it's so difficult that you have the weight of the sport on your shoulders. You have to fight more. You have to defend every single top contender and 4 sanctioning bodies. So one of the things that I've uh, advocated for was the immediate defense of the undisputed status for either the lineal or, even better yet, as soon as you reach undisputed status, drop all the belts and start all over again. Because if you hold on to all 4 belts, somebody like Jermaine Taylor can come after you've been working for 5, 7 years, like in the case of Bernard Hopkins, and then one guy just comes in there, Johnny come lately. This is the sport of the puncher's chance. He beats you, and all of a sudden he is undisputed just because he beat one man when somebody took 4 or 5 different years to get there. You see what I'm saying? This is the injustice of the undisputed status. That as hard as it is to become undisputed, as easy it is to become undisputed, right? And if you abandon all 4 belts, you don't have to stall up the divisions. You don't have to rob men of opportunities to fight you. You can start all over again, making the sport start anew, have fun, but you're not going to hold up Filip Hrgovic's chance at waiting another year, year and a half to fight Oleksandr Usyk. Why? Because you decided to go the business route and protect the investment of Queensbury, Frank Warren, Matchrooms, Eddie Hearn, and of course, Turkey Ali Sheikh, His Excellency's money by saying, we're going to run it again. You see what I'm saying? The immediate rematch clause is the worst thing that can happen in the sport of boxing because it's all business and it's going to rob men of their chance at greatness. That's my stance. And I believe the IBF is going to do the same thing to Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan. And how do I know it? Because they've already stripped Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan of a belt when he decided to forego defending his IBF against what's his name, Sergey Derevchenko. Sergey Derevchenko apparently demanded about 10 to 15 million dollars to take on the IBF champion Canelo, and Canelo decided to abandon that belt and move up to 168. If he had fought in that guy, he would have been a champion, undisputed, holding all 4 belts. And they stripped him of that, and Canelo said, screw you. I'm not going to defend your belt. I'm not going to give this guy who no one's ever heard of $10 million. And you know what he said recently when they told him the same thing might happen to Canelo? Canelo said this: I can do whatever I want. He told the IBF, if I don't want to fight Skull, I'll do you again like I did you before. I can do whatever I want. Dream, do you like it when a fighter thinks he's so above the sport that he can tell the boxing world he can do whatever he wants?
Um, so you're pretty much naming Errol Spence. You're naming because really, only two guys have said that. I mean, two guys fall in that category, and because only dudes that win can really feel some type of way. If you're losing, uh, I mean, if you've never owned a fucking belt, then you shouldn't be talking at all. But dudes, I forget who was the next. Errol Spence, and I think Tank a little bit.
Mm,
Just because of his timing of calling out dudes like Loma. It's like, nah, bro, too late. I felt like I talked about this already. Um, yeah, I hate that shit, bro. I don't like when dudes feel obligated and kind of mix everything up as far as like the rankings and who deserves what, and really fucking shit up as far as uh what's fair and what's not fair. uh the type of opportunities that they give them. It's yeah, just Errol Spence is the king of that shit.
mm. Okay. Yeah, yeah. No, you got a point. The homie Ricky states the following after I posited that idea that they should drop the belts. No, that's just one of the things that I'm saying can happen. But in fact, the other thing that could happen, and it probably is the better obligation, is that he fights every 2.5 months, every 3 months or so, and he fights every single number one mandated fighter in a row without waiting 6 months, because every number one contender is going to be waiting years before it gets to that. You got to understand, it goes from the WB WBA, WBC, WBO, and the IBF, that in a row, the IBF would have to make Filip Hrgovic wait up to 2 more years before he gets a shot at that. And that's unfair because he's already waited 3 turns, right? He's been number one for like about a year and a half already. You want him to lay dormant, waiting on his laurels, sitting on his laurels where he gets a shot, or should he continue to fight and then risk losing to a fighter when he already has a shot at greatness? Some of us fighters, they don't fight just for the money. Some of them actually fight for the belts. Some of them want to hold their head high and their belts even higher and say, I got this. I'm number one in the world. None of the other stuff matters to them. Not to step aside money, homie Ricky. Sometimes some of these fighters do it for the legacy. And of course, the homie states with all disrespect. Funny. Once the fighter becomes undisputed, don't strip them and start over. Have all the number one contenders have a round robin or tournament, and the last man standing fights the undisputed. Now, that would mean, homie Ricky, that any one of these fighters uh, would have to be ranked in all the 4 organizations, right? And some fighters are just ranked in 1 or 2 organizations. They don't care to pay sanctioning bodies for all of them. So if you are only gonna pick the number one contenders at the top, then you're basically at a round robin, which I love that idea. You're also asking some of the fighters to either pay more sanctioning bodies for organizations or skip the line for some of these fighters and these organizations that they've never fought for and just pay their way to the top, which is just as corruptible as what got the IBF in problems in the first place. So no, it cannot be a round robin of just the top 1 or 2 guys at all the sanctioning bodies, because not all of them have paid their dues. Not all of them have fought and climbed up the ranks, homie Ricky. When one becomes king, he calls the shots. No, when one becomes king, everybody wants to take your crown. He has the advantages and the army. He demands the respect and the 8-side privileges. He is above the belt and regulations. The challenger has no pull. The challenger in the sport of boxing, that's the only way you become king, by challenging everybody. Without the challenger, there is no champion, homie Ricky. So many flaws in your logic. The homie Ricky goes on to state, but to only win the tournament, and then he is worthy. Okay, so let's just posit that number 1 or 2 guys and all 4 sanctioning bodies, that could be between 4 and 8, right? 4 and 8 fighters. 4 would mean 2 fights, and then from that another one for a third. 8 would mean 4 fights, and then another one for a fifth. And then what is Usyk waiting on? For these guys to clear themselves up, what is that, like a the World Boxing Super Series? How long does it take? Like a year and a half or 2? Is Usyk supposed to just sit on his laurels and take on what do they call it? Not mandatories, but what is the other word that they call the Dream? The guys that they're not soft touches, but they're not mandatories. They're like
Tune-ups.
no, not tune-ups. It's like a fighter that decides to fight a guy, but he gets to pick him as long as they're in the top 15. They're not mandatories, but they're like optional fights. I forget what the term is, but you basically want the
A cherry pick.
undisputed. Yeah, or yeah, they don't have to be cherry picks. They could just be like, I choose to fight that guy for the money, right? Instead of fighting the mandated guy, because they
Cherry
could take
pick.
him. No, no. What's the term, homie? What is the term I'm looking for? They're not mandatories. They're the other thing that fighters can take on. Like, I forget. Anyways, but cherry picks, I guess. Let's just go with cherry picks. In short, the challenger has to choose the
Cherry pick tune-ups.
cherry pick tune-ups. Yeah, tune-up fights. A tune-up fight, I guess, is the closest thing to it. Look at it this way: Canelo pays the commissions, their fees. They work for Canelo.
Man, hey, I gotta go to sleep right now, bro. I gotta wake up
Alrighty,
early.
man.
I gotta go.
Yeah, go for
Uh,
it, man. You
leaving.
thank you for hopping on
Um,
this live, man.
yeah, I'm going pretty far tomorrow. So,
All right. I
pass.
wish you safe travels then.
All right, man. Have a good one. Good
All
night.
right. Good
Peace
night,
out,
Dream.
everyone.
Peace out.
Peace.
Eddie Medi says, look at it this way: Canelo pays the commissions, their fees. They work for Canelo. Well, it's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship, Eddie Medi. Canelo pays the sanctioning bodies in order to fight their fighters under their rules, but get the acclaim of the belts and recognition, because most fighters will get fights from promoters that take on fighters that are well ranked. It rarely ever will a promoter just take on nobody from the street, right? Unless, of course, they're misfit fighters. But otherwise, one feeds off of the other. A fighter that accomplishes rankings and merits and their standing, of course, gets looked on favorably by the promoters and their managers. They offer them opportunities for recompense, and then there's opportunities. Just it's a positive circle. It's a positive feedback. But you cannot have one without the other. You cannot have the greatest fighter in the world who's never fought for any sanctioning bodies. So they need each other. Canelo wouldn't be Canelo if Canelo never fought the champions for these organizations, is what I'm saying. So Canelo has to pay these commissions for the opportunities. Eddie Medi says, if they want the percentage, then they just need to STFU, shut the F up, and be flexible to the belt holder. Well, then you're castrating the sanctioning bodies, right? If the belt holder can manipulate the sanctioning bodies, then the sanctioning bodies would never have a standard to follow, right? Right now, I'm applauding the IBF for the way that they're moving and holding on to their standards that they want their champions to abide by holding on to the belt. But if they were to move more like the WBC, where the WBC can be easily manipulated, like the PBC manipulates them and allows Jermell Charlo to hold on their belt for about 2 years and a half, or Errol Spence to similarly take a fight once a year, even though he fought for 3 sanctioning bodies. He's stalling the division. Why? Because the belt holder, the cash cow, has power. And I don't know if I agree with that. I actually don't think that I agree with that.
Put me in, coach.
I did put you in, coach.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you loud and clear.
All right. So put it to you like this, bro. So
Whoa,
the
whoa, whoa, wait, wait. Before you go on, let's just introduce you. Ladies and gentlemen, before you, yes, the one and only, the homie, Ricky.
look, all I'm gonna say is pretty much this, bro. All right, to keep someone becomes you, dude. You shouldn't to start over because that defeats the purpose of the journey of that champion that holds all the throne, all the medal, all the gold, all the belts around his waist. You don't want to start all over because why would
I mean, I understand. I would prefer
should
not to
have
start over.
a tournament and just basically watch all of his opponents fight and eliminate one another, right? And then the last man standing gets to fight me because we get a situation like Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos,
Mm.
where George Kambosos upsets the world, upsets the champion in Teofimo Lopez. But why does George Kambosos, get the shot of all that glory and of that night and of that upset over Devin Haney? He basically has to sit, pay his 3%, fight voluntary defenses as long as he remains in that mandatory position. The David, Kyron Davises of the world, and Canelo has to go through Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, and Callum Smith.
Mm-hmm.
David Benavides has to eliminate Billy. He has to eliminate David Morrell. He has to eliminate Jaime. Beat all those undefeated cats. Guess what? David has to do the same thing by eliminating all of them. And then, in turn, sanctioning fees, because guess what? Canelo had to pay all of those sanctioning fees too. And I don't agree with what you're saying with, oh, well, he's been paying for the IBF. The other guys are only paying for the WBC. Well, that's like, of course. Why would you want basically 3% spread it across four sanctioning bodies, which is 12% of your purse bid, to all of these belts just to get ranked? And basically, what you're saying is it's not even based on meritocracy and my skill. Have deep pockets, or you actually can afford this 3%, and that's how you're going to get made onto my top 10 list. That's ridiculous, bro. You get what I'm saying? So undisputed for Usyk, the IBF should have no standing. There should, because look, I know we're spoiled in the last couple of years of all of these fighters becoming undisputed. I get that. I get that. But it's very uncommon, because if we look back to the heavyweight division, Lennox Lewis only had 2 of the belts and he was deemed undisputed. Now you have to have 4 of the belts. And then you get the ring and the lineal. You get what I'm saying? So, nah, man, like that's how it should be, you know. And the king, yeah, his road should. I'm not saying it was easy because he had to eliminate all of those fighters, but it should be easier than the challenger coming up, because equal treatment. Usyk had to beat Joshua, Fury, and all of these dudes, and Filip Hrgovic didn't have to go through those dudes. And I'm saying Filip Hrgovic ain't worthy of this IBF belt or of the undisputed status because he hasn't beat nobody. You get what I'm saying? So I mean, it's really simple. Why would you want to start all over and get all this mess where, guess what? I don't have to unify with you. I don't have to unify with the other champions. I can continue to stay in my lane, earn my 3%, like Gennady Golovkin did, and you know, for a while, then he became unified and all that. But I can just continue to pay and just remain the IBF champion forever without ever having to unify. Because unified, that's not a to become undisputed. It's more of an accomplishment for the fighter and what the fans want to see. Because the whole idea of undisputed, bro, I think you forget, is to have one phase per division. So there is no room for a Filip Hrgovic if he doesn't eliminate Anthony Joshua or rematch Big Bang Zhang or fight Tyson Fury. He does not have credence and pull and influence to bypass those 3 guys to get at Oleksandr Usyk. You're wrong, bro. You're wrong.
Well,
You're
here's
wrong.
the thing. And in fact, the undisputed is a luxury, right? The undisputed
It's a luxury
is
for everybody.
it. Well, undisputed is basically, um, it's I'm not saying it's something new. I'm just saying it was never as mm, as sought after as it is in most recent generations. And the prior past, there was always different sanctioning bodies. The WBC, WBA for the longest time. I guess they're the longest reigning ones, right? They used to have their own ranked fighters, and a lot of the times those fighters never even crossed paths with each other. It was just 2 different companies that operated differently. They had different rules. They had different champions. There was one face for each one, and it just depended on which of the organizations you cared about following, right? Like nobody really cared about undisputed. Even the 4 kings at in middleweight, Roberto Manos de Piedra Duran, all of those fighters, when they fought, they weren't saying, "Oh, it's undisputed." And even when they fought, when fighters fought for undisputed, they weren't promoting it as undisputed, 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 undisputed. The only reason it even has the respect that it does right now is because of the fact that there is more weight divisions now. Back then there was, now there's about 17. Back then there was about 8, right? And then, of course, the addition of another 2 sanctioning bodies from when Undisputed started to become a significant thing, it just made it that it was much more complicated for the boxing casual to follow the sport and know who's the real champion. Because every time you say there's a champion at middleweight and there's 4 different champions, you get confused. Why is there 4 different champions? It's easier for people to follow a sport like the UFC because there's only 1 champion in each division, because it's not a sanctioning body or 2. It's just 1 promotion. But just like the uh, UFC does not represent all of mixed martial arts, right? It's the same thing with the sport of boxing. The sport of boxing is not mandated nor followed only by 1 company. It's multiple companies that operate differently. It's just the limited uh, the limitations of the mind of the boxing fan that makes it hard for them to imagine why there's different champions. But if you look closely into the bylaws, the clauses, and what makes each of these sanctioning bodies, they operate differently. That's why some fighters choose to go one route and not the other. They want to
Absolutely.
find what's easier for them.
and
So
that's what makes the road difficult. For example, the WBC, they're the only one that use VADA for their drug testing. The IBF is the only one that puts a rehydration clause. So, and respectively, two things about that system also is this: not different. That means the road to adhere to these, like, in order for you to represent my belt, the WBC, you have to do VADA testing, which basically means for over, where I can drug test the WBA or the WBO or the IBF route as long as, I adhere to their bylaws, which means that it could be the road of least resistance, right? If I'm juiced to the gills, and here's another thing. If I become a champion for one belt, the other three belts, they usually drop me from their rankings because now I represent that other belt. So there's a lot of the times where if I'm the IBF champion, the WBC doesn't have to put me in their top 10 because they're like, well, he went the other route. Now,
no, not if you pay sanctioning fees.
right. But then you can basically stop to pay for them. Because once you become a champion for another belt, guess what? You don't become a mandatory for the other belts.
Oh, of course, of course.
You see, that's why we have to agree separately, and then it'll be like, okay, unification trumps mandatory, and the only one that doesn't adhere to that stipulation is the WBO. You see, so because they didn't really choose the convention that happened in the early 2000s, so again, it's a cluster, like it's a fucking clusterfuck. But
Yeah,
when it
but
comes
what I'm
down
trying
to,
to say, homie
so
Rick,
why
it's
would you want to
easier.
start all over and have all these dudes fight? Like, no, bro, that's
No,
ridiculous. If
no, no, no. What I'm trying to say,
all
the
the these
reason why,
wars, if I'm Napoleon Dynamite, four foot
of the
two, and I
possibility.
beat all these dudes and I behead all these other kings to take over the world, do Teofimo Lopez status just so this dude can fucking chop my head off? Come on, bro. Nah,
Look,
what are
the
you talking about?
reason why I say drop the belts is because it should be nearly impossible for the undisputed to defend against the number one guy at the current era, where there's only a fight or two taking place in a year. That's going to create the longest reigning undisputed era of all. Why? Because they can afford the luxury of taking long hiatuses before they defend again. What you're proposing is this round robin thing where all the number ones from all of the sanctioning bodies start to eliminate each other while this guy just sits on his laurels, right? That inactivity is gonna come into play. And who's to say that the champion wants to sit on his laurels? The only reason why a champion will sit on his laurels is undisputed. It's only on the account that they're getting paid well enough. But let's just say somebody from
Well, he could
108
have a couple
flyweight.
voluntary
Let's
stop
just say that
touches,
yeah,
tune-ups,
they
get some
may. But what
knockouts,
happens if
as
those
these guys
voluntary?
have to eliminate
But
each
what
other.
happens if those voluntaries beat them?
The belts don't necessarily have to be in the line.
Why not? Why not?
They can be exhibition matches like a
No, no, no,
Francis
no, 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 no.
Ngannou.
Then drop the belts. If you're already exhibiting, if you're exhibiting, you're not partaking in the sport of boxing. If you're not abiding by the rules, you're not abiding by the rules that make you a champion in the first place. The reason you became a champion is because you abided and followed the rules. What you're trying to propose is that once you achieve the acclaim of being undisputed, you should be able to flaunt the rules. You see?
No. You
Yes,
should
that's
be
what you're
hold
saying.
on. You should be treated as a
Nobody should
king.
be treated.
No.
Nobody should be
Listen.
treated.
You should be treated as a
Nobody should be
king,
treated.
and then just watch these dudes
No,
for your
no,
amusement,
no,
and then just
no,
eat grapes, sip
no,
wine, and just
no.
be like, all right,
Let me show you what
that's
the
what
real
kings
life.
do, bro.
Let me show you what the real life example of what you're proposing is. All right,
I'm giving you, bro.
Jeff.
This is Game of
Jeff.
Thrones.
I'm gonna. That doesn't matter. That's not the way it is. Let me tell you more of a
I'm
real
saying that's
life
the way it
scenario.
should be.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Let
Yeah,
me
you
give you
want
let
to
me
rule
give you
by.
a
Let
situation.
me give
Hold
you
on.
a real life scenario. Let me give you a real life scenario. Uh, who's the guy who owns Google? Right? No, wait. Amazon. Jeff Bezos, right? Okay,
Sure.
Jeff Bezos starts up a company, and he becomes successful. He's so successful that he starts eliminating the competition. He is
Mm-hmm.
so successful that he's the only one on the top. He is so successful that he's reached to the top, that he's the king of the world, that the company, the government, the one that's supposed to execute the laws and be fair with everybody, you know what they do? They manipulate the laws in order for that company, Jeff Bezos and Amazon, to not pay taxes, while the suckers like you and I, we pay taxes. Now, is that equity? Is that justice? No. The best guy has to climb on top following the same damn rules that everybody has to. Once you reach an acclaim, you should not be able to take shortcuts or cheat. That's the real life scenario. People like you would propose that Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk should not pay taxes, to take shortcuts, to take over the world. Why? Because you granted your rights. You gave
Dude,
him privileges
absolutely.
when they
They
are
provided
already
a
on the top.
surface.
It
They
doesn't
hold on,
matter.
hold on.
You
They
want them to
provided a
take over the world.
surface
Let them
that's
poison.
ubiquitous. They're
Let them.
fucking
Let
God's
them.
gift to
Let
Earth,
them.
bud.
Let them vaccinate you. Let them vaccinate you, and tell the government to force you to vaccinate. Why? Because they reached the top,
Hold on, bro.
and
Don't
because
tell me,
Alexander Usyk is the
dude, you're gonna get
same
shut down by YouTube for
equivalence.
speaking about the jab.
Yeah, yeah.
If you talk about
Alexander
the jab, they're gonna mute you, dude.
Alexander Usyk, Alexander Usyk, right, is Jeff Bezos.
Let me tell you this.
It's
All
Mark
right. You
Zuckerberg.
gave me a
Who's
ridiculous
wait?
decision.
Who's the
Hold on, hold
guy?
on.
Who's the
Hold on,
guy
hold
with
on, hold on, hold
Bill
on.
Gates? Bill
Allow me
Gates.
to
Hey,
retort.
Alexander Usyk is Bill Gates, bro, and you
Bro,
propose that?
listen,
Crazy.
listen. Hold on. Put it to you like this.
I just put it to you
Ol-
like that.
Oleksandr Usyk is undisputed. That should come with a lot of privileges. One, dude, I did it in 2 weight classes. I'm a gold medalist. I beat all of these tough ass dudes. I took their belts from them.
Yeah,
Most of the time, those dudes were all undefeated when he was going through his, domination or his quest of conquest, right? Like
yeah.
he was conquering everybody, right? Not just once. He did it a couple of times. Amazing, amazing. What they should do, a tournament, not just the number one contender. Put the number one and two of each respective body. Okay, put them on. If the IBF has Filip Hrgovic and Derek Chisova as a number one and their two, do that. And then the WBA and have an 8-man tournament. Who cares? Usyk can have some soft touches, some exhibitions, some fucking 6 rounders just to stay tuned and just to, make sure that he doesn't get fat and, big old belly of wine and grapes because apparently that's a big problem with you. But he should have some privileges because, dude, it's amazing. An undisputed doesn't come Johnny lately, and guess what? It hasn't been accomplished in over 20 years, or close to 20 years, or exactly 20 years. So it lets you know that it's not prevalent. That it's almost like seeing a fucking unicorn. How
And it
often do you
doesn't
see a
matter.
6'2" guy beat up a guy who's 7 foot tall and almost knock him out?
The
And you're trying to
sanctioning
tell me
bodies,
Filip Hrgovic? Hold on, and you
the
mean to tell
sanctioning
me
bodies should not have a preference for those things. They should just do their
yes, they
job.
should. Because,
No,
dude,
they
also
should just
this.
do their job.
My 3%, like for example, if I got paid, if Usyk made 100 million, right, against this fight against Tyson Fury, that means each sanctioning body took 3%. That's 12% of my fucking purse. That belt better be
Too
made
bad.
of gold. That belt better be of gold. It better be amazing. That shit better not be pleather. I want alligator skin on that bitch. Then
It
I
doesn't
wanted
matter.
something that
Doesn't
other
matter.
groups can't
Nope,
have
nope,
because
nope.
no,
You
no, no,
cannot
no,
have
no,
what
dude.
other
Listen,
people
that's
can't.
ridiculous,
You
bro.
cannot
That's the
have what
most
other people
ridiculous
can't.
thing that
And
you
in
ever heard.
fact, and in
Listen,
fact,
going
here's the
back to
thing.
Jeff
And in
Bezos,
fact, here's the thing. If
if I
it's
created a
unfair for a
service,
guy, if it's unfair for a guy to pay his 3% sanctioning fees for when you're a multimillionaire that just got paid $100 million, guess what? The 3% that a person that's only getting paid $10,000 is much more of a burden.
no,
Nobody
it's
should
not.
get a
No,
little
it's not.
lenience. Nobody should get leniency. Nobody should get any flexibility. Fair is fair.
No,
You're trying
no.
to you're
And
trying
then
to
this
spoil
is
these
worse.
guys, and
It's
the
a
fact
false
that
equivalency, buddy.
an easy is the head that wears the crown. No, it's
Listen,
absolutely
listen.
the same.
It's a
It's
false
absolutely the
equivalency
same.
because let me put it to you like this. Okay, there's this old adage, right? There's this situation, right, where you were saying, "Oh, well, 3% because I make less." Look, let's say a rich man gives his son $1,000, knowing that his bank account has 1 million. That $1,000 ain't shit. And let's say your father only has $10 in his wallet and his bank account, and he decides to give all of his $10 to his son, right? You're gonna be like, damn, like that's like equivalent if he were giving his son $1 million of the rich father giving his son $1 million because it cleaned out his bank right to the $10. No, dude, it's not, dude. You can't even. It's not even equivalent. If I'm giving my son $1,000 and that basically poor father gave his son $10, make more money.
Dude, what is
Make more
wrong with
money.
you?
So listen,
One.
hold
Look,
on. So
man, you don't
the
understand nothing.
value, the
The
value and the worth. Hold on. The value and the worth is this: 12 million from my 100 million is way more than your $300 of that 10 grand that you made. What the fuck are you talking
Of
about, bro?
course, it
12
doesn't matter
million?
though. Fair is fair. You're getting paid way
No,
more than the ten
hell
thousand dollar
no.
fighter. You're getting paid more for the than the ten
Nope.
thousand dollar fighter.
You better lower
Yes,
that
yes.
3%. It
No,
better be
nobody's gonna
1.2.
lower nothing. Nobody's gonna
No, no,
lower
no.
nothing.
Guess
Fair
what?
is
Guess
fair.
what?
And if you
Sorry,
don't
buddy.
like
Hold
it,
on, hold
and
on.
here's the thing, and if
Andre
you don't
Ward.
like it,
Hold on, hold
and
on,
if you
hold on.
don't like it,
Andre
you can
Ward.
leave the belt right there where you got
No,
it.
let me tell
Simple,
you something. Let me
simple as
tell
that.
you something, buddy. Let me
Simple as
tell you
that.
something, buddy.
That was
Andre
actually a
Ward.
very bad experience.
He no, no.
Your
Listen,
example, wait up, wait up.
hold on, hold on.
Your example was very bad because you tried to use something you thought you were being clever. One
No, no,
person
no. What
gave
I'm
the
trying to
son
tell you is
every
a false
single thing they had in
equivalency.
their life. One person gave their son everything they had in their life, even though that was nothing. The symbolism behind that is that that person is willing to give you everything they had. May not be much, but they gave you everything they had. Now, the other guy, the millionaire, only chose to give their son $1,000, which is a pittance compared to what they have. Just because the $1,000 is more than the $10 that the other person had, the symbolism behind it is still you don't get the kind of respect that I could give you. You're not going to get more than that. That is symbolically a slap in the face for the person receiving $1,000 than the one receiving the $10. That means the hard work and all that the father has of the impoverished man. That's incredibly disrespectful. You're trying to compare apples and orange. You're talking about symbolism with
No,
material
what the
things.
father
You're
should have
talking
done that had
numerical
10
versus
bucks.
symbolism.
The father should have done with $10 is not give his son $10. He should have given his son $1. Then
No,
we can
that's if you're
equate.
trying.
No, no,
That's if
then
you're
we can
trying
equate. Or he should have
equate.
given him a
Yeah.
quarter. Or then he should have given him a quarter. Why would you give him the whole sum, bro?
Okay,
That's
so what you're
ridiculous.
saying is you should have given him 10%.
So
Here's the
Oleksandr
thing.
Usyk,
Oleksandr Usyk,
if you're
if
not going to listen, hold on. If you're not going to make this challengers go through the same thing that I had to pick up all these dust, and they get to take the easiest road of path of least resistance just to get to me, then that lets me know that your sanctioning body or your belt means fucking nothing. Cause I'm the face of all these belts. I beat all these worthy dudes that you thought I couldn't beat because I was undersized, because I was too small, because they were 7 foot. And you want Filip Hrgovic to get a shot over all these worthy challengers? Make it
um,
make sense. I'm just being
let me see
consistent.
if I
If
could.
I had to eliminate all these dudes, and this dude doesn't have to eliminate and be the last man standing like I am, he's not
That's
worthy
too bad,
enough,
homie
bro.
Ricky. I like the law to be the same applied to everybody. That's too bad.
Again,
You like
then you're not
flexibilities.
warranting
You like
meritocracy, bud.
flexibilities. No, the meritocracy comes from the fact that everybody played by the same rules, and you reach the top. But they're
No,
still set by the same
by
rules.
far.
You're talking corruption. You're talking
No,
corruption. Here's the thing: you're trying to equate what Oleksandr Usyk has done in the sport, how it should be treated, like the same way that the politicians should. The politicians rise themselves to the top, and then they make laws that benefit themselves, advantage themselves, and
not the
everybody else gets.
politicians,
Yes, they
the
do. Yes, they
corporations,
do. You
the
have no. The
corporations,
corporations is another one that
the
is also
corporations.
benefited.
Listen, the
Also benefited.
corporations
I
should be
guess you haven't been
Oleksandr
following
Usyk.
politics long enough.
Listen. The corporations should be Oleksandr Usyk. I make all your guys' bankroll. I make all this product happen. I run the show. You just basically piggyback off the sweat, blood, and tears of my effort.
Yeah, and
Listen,
guess what?
wait,
And here's the
whoa.
thing:
Listen, if I'm
the
Walmart, hold on, bud,
government. Wait
hold
up, the government is not
on.
a government is not an agent of the corporation. It's
Listen.
supposed to work the other way around.
So
How do I mute you? Wait up. How do I
The
figure out how
corporation,
to
if
mute
I'm
you?
Walmart, listen, if I'm Walmart,
Let me see if I can
right?
mute this
If
guy right
I'm the
here.
employer and I hire 1 million employees, I should better be playing by different fucking rules than my employees, buddy.
I'm gonna try
Cause
something. I'm
then,
gonna see if I
then
can.
what the fuck is the point of me making a
Let me see.
Walmart? If
Let me
I'm
see
Jeff
if I can.
Bezos, I should definitely get some fucking perks, some
Let me
tax
see if I
write-offs,
could
and the
mute
one
this guy right
percent
here.
because I am a 1%. I fucking had to stress and lose all this hair
General.
and fucking hit the gym and all these other things because there's other little competitors like
None of that
Temu
should matter
trying to
to the
take over.
IBF.
No,
None of that
it
should matter
should
to the
matter, bud.
IBF. No, it
Listen,
should.
bud,
No, it
you're
shouldn't matter.
tripping, bro.
No, it
Then
doesn't
you're
matter.
not
You
valuing
endorse
true words,
corruption.
bro.
You endorse corruption. That's
But
what
let
it
me
is.
ask
You
you this.
endorse corruption.
Hold on, no,
Listen,
it's
homie
not.
Ricky, why don't you
Yes, sir,
admit
it is. Yes,
why
sir,
don't
it
you
is.
admit that you endorse corruption? That you are
Listen,
all for
listen.
the fuckery. That you're all for the shenanigans. That you're all for preferential treatment on account of what you call meritocracy. That
Of
that
course.
that Oleksandr Usyk
What the
should
flip?
that Oleksandr Usyk is greater than the organizations that make the sport function. That's ridiculous. Anyways,
Listen. I just
they're
gave you
gonna do the
10
same thing. It doesn't matter. I'm
fallacies.
not. I don't find your opinions to be valid. You are a corrupting agent. You are here to belittle the sanctity of the sport and the adherence of the law that has been set and written in stone and applies to everybody. And now you're saying they should make an exception because Alexander Usyk beat a heavyweight, an overweight
No, he
clown
should
and
be an
Tyson Fury that
exception
is a
because
Rocky
he
Mountain
became
oyster eater. It
undisputed.
doesn't matter. There is no exceptions in the sport of boxing. Nobody
Listen,
cares
no.
about you. Nobody cares about you in the sport of
Time out.
boxing. The
Time out.
fighters want to see the fights. We don't care about the faces. You're a fan of man.
What are you talking
You
about?
are a fan of man.
Dude,
You see, you
listen.
are a fan of man. You
Dude,
understand what
let
I'm
me ask
saying?
you this.
You are the
Is
person that I'm
Oleksandr Usyk,
against.
hold on,
You are the
is
person that I'm
Oleksandr,
against. You wait.
listen,
I'm gonna
hold on,
boil
hold on,
it down
hold
to
on.
you because I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah,
You
hold
are
on,
what's wrong in the sport.
Is
You
Oleksandr
like
Usyk,
characters.
is
You like
Oleksandr Usyk
faces. You
Canelo
like the
Alvarez?
Mayweathers. You like the Alvarez. You want to see the same people. You are a fan of man. I don't care about the fan of man. I don't care about the man. I care about the sport. I care about the fight. I care about the men that have been waiting their shot for a chance, and I don't care how much and how hard Alexander Usyk trained or how he got there. Guess what? Now you're there. The burden is on you to defend, and if you cannot abide by the rules that everybody abides by, you know what? You will be stripped like everybody else would be.
That's
Nobody cares
ridiculous.
about it. It doesn't matter. And with that being said, hey, homie Ricky, teach me how to mute people.
I don't know. There's
No, yeah, no, you know, because you
you
muted me
have
before.
to
I'm trying to mute you
just like
now.
you hold on.
No.
Don't
Tell me before you go on.
you
Tell me how do
I
you
don't
mute?
know.
No,
Man,
you know. Come on,
what do you mean?
come on.
I know. I never mute you guys.
You've muted me before. You muted me before, and you had a laugh at it. Do you go on general? Do you go on settings? Do
No,
you go on
on the
recording?
person's face. I mean, I
Uh,
don't know what you're using, but on the person's face, on the
yeah.
icon, there should have a mic, and you should be able to mute it right there.
Let me see. Wait. Don't leave. Just kidding. Anyways, there's
Wait.
I
Hold on. Let me ask. You were so many said things you said about wrong. Boxing is not like any other sport. Okay, boxing,
oh,
the
I think I found it.
boxers, the simple individual, the simple individual. They
Uh,
are the faces that carry and piggyback this sport on their back. Okay, so that's why we create a pound for pound list. That's why we make arguments. That's why we rank fighters, because that individual, sometimes it's Canelo Alvarez, sometimes it's Tank, sometimes it's Lomachenko. Not just the pound for pound stars. It could be Alexander Usyk or Anthony Joshua. They have to carry the sport of boxing and make it prevalent and make it relevant. If it becomes about the sanctioning bodies, guess what? They aren't gonna have man represent this sport. It'll just be a sport. It could be like the UFC organized. Then the commissioner, one sanctioning body, one government, one Dana White promotes all of the sport. Now, that's okay. But when you have different entities that have four different rules and regulations, that what you propose is not possible.
Let me ask you something,
Because
homie Ricky. Let me ask you something,
there's
homie
no
Ricky.
government. Hold on, hold
Let
on.
me
There
ask you
is no
something.
oversight of one entity that oversees all of that. There are four
Yeah,
different
of
bodies
course,
with
of
four
course.
different governments. Hold on, hold on.
Exactly.
So hold on, hold on. And this fucking, you know,
Don't say bad words
OK
on my show.
Corral situation in this
Don't say
wild
bad words
west
on my
of
show.
boxing, you want an undisputed fighter because then it makes everything much simpler. It strips all these four individual governments into one man, into one unicorn, into
That's
one
simpler for the
face of
fan. But let me
boxing.
tell you something. When
All right,
when
bro. Look, just
Alvarez
mute me, bro.
when
I'm gonna have
Alvarez
some fun
says,
later,
"Wait up,"
dude.
when
Nah,
Alvarez,
you
that's what
can't
I
talk to
thought.
you, bro. You
That's what
can't
I
talk to
thought.
me, bro.
No, I can't let you take over the show with your bad
Jeff
takes. That's the thing.
Bezos,
Let me ask
Amazon,
you
and
something.
Walmart are
Here's the
God's gift
thing.
to Earth, dude.
When Canelo Alvarez says, "I can do whatever I want," right?
Yes,
When he walked
and
away
pay
from the
me two
sport,
hundred
then
million.
why doesn't Oleksandr Usyk do the same thing?
He
Huh?
should.
Why is Oleksandr Usyk not saying the same thing? Why? If he's the face of boxing and he understands
No,
his
he's the
worth,
face of the
if he's
heavyweight
the face,
division.
it doesn't. Okay, great. If he's the face of the heavyweight division, he's one of the most accomplished undisputed fighters and the best fighters in the world right now. Why can he not just say the same thing as Canelo and say, "I can do whatever I want. I don't need the IBF."
How come I can't see the chats that you guys? Oh, I gotta connect my YouTube. Hold
I'm
on.
asking you, why
Wait,
did
sorry. What was
Canelo
that?
understand that? Why did Canelo say, "I can do whatever I want"? He allows the IBF to take away his belt, and he doesn't care. Why? Because he's already a cash cow. He's already thinking like you, right? He can do whatever he wants, and he's not gonna manipulate the organizations. He's gonna do whatever he wants. Oleksandr Usyk can do whatever he wants. The IBF is still gonna strip him. Simple as that, right? You got to understand that. And here's the thing: what do you think Alexander Usyk is thinking? You think he doesn't want to hold on to the IBF? You think he has a problem with fighting Filip Hrgovic? I assure you, a person that complains as much as him, "Oh, you hit me on the side of the head. Oh, you hit me a little low." I know he follows the rules. I know he understands the value of the belts. That's why he climbed up the ranks. That's why he wanted to attain all four belts, because he knows it's an impossibility to get there. And he also knows it's an impossibility to hold on to all the belts
Okay.
without that
First and
respect,
foremost,
without the
let
respect
me give you a
without.
contrary
Hey, I'm gonna mute you.
point
I'm
of
gonna
view.
mute you because I'm talking. I'm gonna mute
I'm
you.
gonna mute you.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
no.
mute you.
I'm gonna mute you.
Salchi.
I'm gonna
You
mute you.
salchicha, bro. Salchicha.
I'm gonna mute you. Let me see if I can do it. Mute. Got it. I think I muted him. No, 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 no. Don't come on. Don't come on.
Hurry
Don't.
up, buddy.
Nope, 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 nope. So the only reason why anybody even wants to pursue undisputed is because the belts matter. Oleksandr Usyk, I assure you, the one thing that he wants to do is to defend every single number one mandatory, including
Oh my
Filip
gosh.
Hrgovic, including Filip Hrgovic. Oleksandr Usyk does not want to take his burden lightly. And only people like you, fan of man, that would like to have these sanctioning bodies cower and bow down to these fighters only because they beat a couple of fighters, flaunt their rules, weaken them, castrate them, so that every other fighter no longer appreciates nor respects these organizations. This is what the homie Ricky would propose, that
Your
these
argument is
organizations willingly
cowardice.
would go over there and just willingly go and let these men manipulate them and puppeteer them. Ridiculous. With
That's
that being
BS.
said,
Let me retort.
no,
Franchise
I'm
belt.
going to sleep.
The
I'm going
email
to sleep.
champion.
I'm going to sleep.
Dude, you go to
Actually,
sleep at 1 o'clock, bro.
I'm actually going to sleep. Um, with that being said, it's
Email
11 o'clock in the
champions. Email
Pacific.
champions. You're condoning
Okay,
email
watch.
champions. What
Edit Mike
what are
said
you talking
kick
about?
from studio. How do you kick from studio, man?
Nah, I'm just
Solo
done, dude.
layup.
Have a good night, bro.
Yeah. All right. Good night, man. Yeah, this guy right here, he loves the corruption. And I guess he wants the sport to remain corrupted. One of the things that we've been proposing as fans is that these organizations follow their own rules, don't demonstrate any kind of preference for any fighters, and we want them to uphold the respect that a champion should carry. You strip these organizations of the power to honor their own champions when they start demonstrating this corrupting preferential treatment. The homie Ricky would approve of being a fan of man instead of being a fan of the sport. Homie Ricky thinks these fighters are greater than the sport. No. Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan is as great in the sport as Oleksandr Usyk, but they're only as great as they are in the sport because they fought for the sanctioning bodies. One necessitates the other. Without the other is nothing. This is a symbiotic relationship. They feed off of each other. I assure you that Oleksandr Usyk is laughing at the homie Ricky right now. And he's saying, do you understand? I'm in my feels because I know how hard it is to get here. I never was shown any kind of leniency or regards. I fought my way up there, and I'm gonna stay here by fighting my way to remain at the top. He's not saying, oh, treat me with kid gloves. Oh, I'm the best fighter in the world. Guess what? I can do whatever I want. No, we are not gonna corrupt nor change the rules for a man. The IBF should not cower or kowtow to the manipulations of Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, and if they must strip him of another belt for not fighting William Scull, so be it. The sport will live on longer than the man. I am not a fan of man. I am a fan of the sport. I don't care who climbs to the top, whether it's a white man, a brown man, a black man. I don't care. As a fan, I'm here for the fights. Men like homie Ricky are here for the face of boxing. The face of boxing promotes fighters like Tank Davis, who would remain at the top undefeated because that way is how you keep being the face of boxing. Let's maneuver and fight in a way that will keep us on top. Let's fool these fans of saying that we're the greatest because I have a face that they can relate to. I have a face that they will be reminded of when they think of the sport of boxing. No, the sport of boxing makes the greatest champions once they triumph at the top and remained at the top by continuing to fight and struggling as much at the top like they did as they were climbing themselves up to the top. The homie Ricky is a fan of man. The homie Ricky is with the chicanery, the effery. The homie Ricky endorses corruption. I don't know who the F is, Scully, but we're about to find out. The Mexican G. That's if Saul Santos Alvarez Barragan, aka Canelo, cares to defend himself and hold on to that belt. Hey, who is Scully? Apparently, Scully is the guy who climbed up there, the Mexican G. He climbed up there and he deserves his chance. That's all we can ask. in the sport of boxing. A chance, a puncher's chance. Make the best of it. But we're not fan of man at Life with Warp Speed. We are here to watch the fights, not to watch the men take on fights. Hey, you guys can agree with me or not. I say strip Oleksandr Usyk for his belt to see if maybe Tyson Fury decides he's no longer interested in fighting. I don't want to watch a rematch. In life, there are winners and losers, and the winner is Oleksandr Usyk. I don't want to open up a door for an opportunity for Fury is number one and a rematch, and that leads to a third fight. Holding up the ranks, charging us pay-per-view money that you guys don't even want to spend on, that you would rather stream. No, there is one guy at the top. His name is Oleksandr Usyk. There is one guy at the top. His name is Saul Alvarez Barragan. Anisi is the head, the wears the crown. And here on out, every single fight is gonna be hellacious. You will only remain at the top by taking everybody out. No easy routes for Usyk. No easy routes for Canelo. That's my word. I appreciate every single one of you, ladies and gentlemen, for entertaining the notions of this interlocutor. And of course, his naysayers, Dream and the homie Ricky. We don't have to agree on these things, but in this, I stand firm. No immediate rematch clause. Anisi is the head that wears the crown. No corruption in the sport of boxing, and no fan of man. Fan of the sport of boxing. Fan of the violence, not a fan of the man. The Mexican G. Homie Ricky, I'll just read a couple of these and then I'll crash out. Usyk, like Canelo, would laugh at David Benavidez of the world and say, wait in line, buddy, you fight with nobody. F that. Have Scotty fight David Benavidez, you on some BS. No, we support and dispute it, and that should come with no special treatments. And that should come with special treatments. Scotty deserves no shot at all. I know about he did, but paid 3%. I want Canelo to fight Benavidez. I want to see Crawford, the overrated hype job, get knocked out. I understand. But I don't like that, the Mexican G. Because this is the sport of the puncher's chance. One of the best fighters in the world, Crawford, could beat Canelo if he's lucky enough and lands the right punch. And that's what I'm against. Fighting hard to climb yourself at the top so that another guy comes over here on the easy without putting in the work, without climbing up the ranks. Like obviously Scully did. Just because we're ignorant boxing fans does not mean that guy did not climb up the ranks the right way. I'd rather see Canelo fight Scully than Crawford. Imagine Crawford, what did you call him? The Mexican G? You called them the overrated hype job. What if the overrated hype job knocks out Saul Alvarez Barragan and he becomes the fastest 3-division undisputed fighter in the world? It wouldn't sit well with me. I hope you are well of health and sane of mind. And if you're not well, take a vitamin D. That should make you feel a little better. Get some sunlight. Exercise like the Mexican G. Doing 100 push-ups. You know what, Mexican? I'm going to do 100 push-ups right now, man. I haven't done none this week. I'm going to do them right now. I'm gonna knock him out. But until then, I do bid you adieu. Engage.